Welcome back, Vibe Tribe. It's your boy Mickey Made It. On today's episode, now as crazy as this might sound, the age of social media is ending. I came across an article this weekend and I just wanted to present it to you guys that what I was reading, and it just made so much sense. It read like this. It's over. Facebook is in decline. Twitter is in chaos. Mark Zuckerberg's empire has lost hundreds of billions of dollars in value and laid off 11,000 people, with its ad business in peril and its metaverse fantasy in irons. Elon Musk's takeover of Twitter has caused advertisers to pull spending and power users to shun the platform, or at least to tweet a lot about doing so. It's never felt more plausible that the age of social media might end. Now that we've washed up on this unexpected shore, we can look back at the shipwreck that left us here with fresh eyes. Perhaps we can find some relief. Social media was never a natural way to work, play, or socialize. Though it did become second nature, the practice evolved via a weird mutation, one so subtle that it was difficult to spot happening in the moment. See, the shift began 20 years ago or so, when the network computers became so serious that people began using them to build and manage relationships. Social networking had its problems, collecting friends instead of being friendly with them. But they were modest compared with what followed. Slowly, without fanfare, around the end of the aughts, social media took its place. The change was almost invisible, but it had enormous consequences. Instead of facilitating the modest use of existing connections, largely for offline life, social software turned those connections into a latent broadcast channel. All at once, billions of people saw themselves as celebrities and tastemakers. A global broadcast network where anyone can say anything to anyone else as often as possible, and where such people have come to think they deserve such a capacity, or even the withholding its amounts of censorship or suppression. That's just a terrible idea for the outset, and it's a terrible idea that is entirely and completely bound up with the concept of social media itself. Systems erect and used exclusively to deliver an endless stream of content. But now, perhaps, it can also end. The possible downfall of Facebook and Twitter and others is an opportunity. Not to shift some equivalent platform, but to embrace their ruination, something previously unthinkable. A long time ago, many social networks walked the earth. 6 Degrees launched in 1997, named after a Pulitzer-nominated play based on a psychological experiment. It shut down soon after the dot-com crash of 2000. The world wasn't ready. Friendster arose from its ashes in 2002, followed by MySpace and LinkedIn in the next year. Then High5 and Facebook in 2004. That year also saw the arrival of Orkut, made and operated by Google. Bebo launched in 2005. Eventually both AOL and Amazon would own it. Google Buzz and Google Plus were born and then killed. You've probably never heard of some of these, but before Facebook was everywhere, many of these services were immensely popular. Content sharing sites also act as a de facto social networks, allowing people to see material posted mostly by people they knew or knew of, rather than from across the entire world. Flickr, the photo sharing site, was one. YouTube, once seen as Flickr for video, was another. Blogs and blog-like services such as Tumblr raced alongside them, hosting musings seen by few and engaged by fewer. In 2008, the Dutch media theorist Gerrit Loving published a book about blogs and social networks whose title summarized their average reach: 0 comments. Today, people refer to all of these services and more as social media. A name of us so familiar that it has ceased to bear meaning. But 2 decades ago, that term didn't exist. LinkedIn promised to make job searching and business networking possible by traversing the connections of your connections. Friendster did so for personal relationships, Facebook for college mates, and so on. The whole idea of social networks was networking, building or deepening relationships, mostly with people we knew. How and why the deepening happened was largely left to the users to decide. That changed when social networking became social media around 2009. Between the introduction of the smartphone and the launch of Instagram, instead of connection, forging latent ties to people, organizations, we would mostly ignore. Social media offered platforms through which people could publish content as widely as possible, well beyond their networks of immediate contacts. Social media turned you, me, and everyone into broadcasters. The results have been disastrous, but also highly pleasurable, not to mention massively profitable, a catastrophic combination. See, the term social network and social media are used interchangeably now, but they shouldn't be. A social network is an idle, inactive system, a Rolodex of contacts, a notebook of sales targets, a yearbook of possible soulmates. But social media is active, hyperactive, rarely spewing material across those networks instead of leaving them alone until needed. A 2003 paper published made an early case that drives the point home. The authors proposed social media as a system in which users participate in information exchange. The network, which had previously been used to establish and maintain relationships, becomes reinterpreted as a channel through which to broadcast. This was a novel concept. When News Corp, a media company, bought MySpace in 2005, the New York Times called the website a youth-oriented music and social networking site. The site's primary content, music, was seen as separate from its social networking functions. Even Zuckerberg's vision for Facebook to connect every person in the world implied a networking function, not media distribution. The toxicity of the social media makes it easy to forget how truly magical this innovation felt when it was new. From 2004 to 2009, you could join Facebook and everyone you'd ever known, including people you definitely lost track of, was right there, ready to connect or reconnect. The posts and photos I saw characterized my friends' changing lives, not the conspiracy theories that their unhinged friends had shared with them. LinkedIn did the same thing with business contacts, making referrals, deal making, and job hunting. You could have started a game studio in 2003 with LinkedIn, when LinkedIn was brand new. Twitter, which launched in 2006, was probably the first true social media site, even if nobody called it that at the time. Instead of focusing on connecting people, the site amounted to a giant chat room for the world. Twitter was for talking to everyone, which perhaps one of the reasons journalists have flocked to it. And sure, a blog could technically be read by anybody with a web browser, but in practice, finding the readership was hard. That's why blogs operated first as social networks, through mechanisms such as blog rolls and linkback. But on Twitter, anything anybody posted could be seen instantly by anyone else. And furthermore, unlike most posts on blogs or images on Flickr or videos on YouTube, tweets were short and low effort, making it easy to post many of them a week or even a day. It's a constant stream of sources, events, and reactions, a reporting automat. When we look back at this moment, social media has already arrived in the spirit, if not by the name. MySpace fused music and chatter. YouTube did it with video broadcast yourself. In 2005, at the industry conference, people remember overhearing an attendee say, "I'm so behind on my Flickr." What does that even mean? Some recall wondering. But now the answer is obvious. Creating and consuming content for any reason or no reason. Social media was overtaking social networking. See, Instagram launched in 2010, might have built the bridge between the social network era and the age of social media. It relied on connections among users as a mechanism to distribute content as primary activity. But soon enough, all social networks became social media first and foremost. When groups, pages, and newsfeed launched, Facebook began encouraging users to share content published by others in order to increase engagement on the service. Rather than to provide updates to friends, LinkedIn launched a program to publish content across the platform too. Twitter, already principally a publishing platform, added a dedicated retweet feature, making it far easier to spread content virally across user networks. Other services arrived or evolved in this vein, among them Reddit, Snapchat, and WhatsApp, all far more popular than Twitter. Social networks, once latent routes for possible contact, became superhighways of constant content. In their latest phase, their social networking aspects have been pushed deep into the background. Although you can connect the app to your contacts and follow specific users on TikTok, you are more likely to simply plug into a continuous flow of video content that has oozed to the surface of the algorithm. You will still have to connect with other users to use some of these services' features, but connection as a primary purpose has declined. Think of the change like this. In the social media networking era, the connections were essential, driving both content creation and consumption. But the social media era seeks the thinnest, most soluble connections possible, just enough to allow the content to flow. Social networks' evolution into social media brought both opportunity and calamity. Facebook and all of the rest enjoyed a massive rise in engagement and the associated data-driven advertising profits that attention-driven content economy created. The same phenomenon also created the influencer economy, in which individual social media users became valuable as channels for marketing messages or product sponsorships by means of their posts. Ordinary folk could now make some money or even a lucrative living creating content online. See, the platform sold them on the promise, creating official programs and mechanisms to facilitate it. In turn, influencer became an aspirational role, especially for young people for whom Instagram fame seemed more achievable than traditional celebrity or perhaps employment of any kind. See, the ensuing disaster was multi-part. For one, social media operators discovered that the more emotionally charged the content, the better it spread across its users' networks. Polarizing, offensive, or just plain fraudulent information was optimized for distribution. By the time the platforms realized and the public revolted, it was too late to turn off these feedback loops. Obsession began to fuel the flames.